So, we just got the biggest Halo news in a long, long time. For starters, it seems like 343 is no more. Leave a like if you enjoy, and let's get into it. So last night, it was announced via a YouTube video on the official Halo channel that 343 Industries is being rebranded to the name Halo Studios. And we finally, amidst much speculation, got official confirmation that Halo is in fact switching to the Unreal Engine. But there's more. A lot more. Apparently, behind the scenes, 343 has been working on something called Project Foundry, which the developers only describe as being specifically, quote, not a game, but a research project to prepare ourselves for the next step of making Halo games, end quote. Along with this, we also got news that there are currently multiple Halo projects underway within the Unreal Engine. We also got to see some renders of various Halo environments that even I have to admit look beyond impressive. The graphical quality and level of detail as well as the art style is what Halo should look like. And that's not me saying it, that's the lead effects artist who stated, and I quote, "The original Halo franchise is a graphical showcase. It was best in class, and that's what Halo was, and that's what Halo needs to be again." This is actually something I'm glad to hear. I've been saying for years now that 343 era Halo looks subpar, not only with the art style, but also from a graphical standpoint. I've always felt that each of the 343 games look years behind their times, and the problem only got worse with each new release. So hearing that there's actually somebody at 343 who notices and is in a position to do something about it is somewhat comforting. From the renders we've seen thus far, everything looks a sort of realistic but vibrant art style, which is something I've always wanted in Halo. Though something I'd like to point out is something that Bungie had said years ago, and that is no matter how good the game may look, it needs to be fun to play above all else. The now famous line by the Halo 3 era campaign engineer Adrian Perez, "The space needs to be fun before it's pretty." What was shown off is not a game, and more a test of what could be done with Unreal Engine graphically. And that distinction between graphical teaser of what could be versus actual gameplay footage needs to be made, but more on that in a bit. Perhaps most significantly with this latest news is towards the end of the video, where Pierre Hintz, the studio head of what was formerly 343, now Halo Studios, says, quote, "Halo Infinite was the last remnants of how we made Halo games in the past. That was our recipe, and what we're doing right now is we are changing that recipe." This is interesting to say the least. So in the lead up to both Halo 5 and Infinite, there was this heavy emphasis on how both of those games were supposedly returning to Halo's roots. With Halo 5, I would argue that 343 failed immensely at achieving this, whereas Halo Infinite, at least from a gameplay standpoint, was much closer to what was described. That being said, the gameplay of Halo Infinite received a bit of a mixed reception. Some loved it and heralded it as one of the best in the series, while for others like myself, while it was certainly an improvement over Halo 5, I also think it really didn't bring much new or innovative to the table, and it felt like Halo 3 with a worse map selection and sandbox. Regardless of how people felt, for a multitude of reasons, Halo Infinite's player count dropped off pretty quickly, especially for a free-to-play game that used to be Xbox's flagship system-selling title. Between the negative reception of Halo 4 and 5, as well as the mixed reception of Halo Infinite, it's clear that new trends inserted into Halo's old formula doesn't work, and neither does fully returning to its roots. It seems to me that perhaps 343 or Halo Studios or whatever recognize this and are keen to try something new and innovate this time while maintaining the Halo aesthetic. This correlates directly with the massive amount of rumors that have been prevalent for the last year or so that Halo's going to be getting some kind of reboot. Add to this the fact that throughout the new video we saw multiple environments, one of which included the Flood, classic Halo 1 era architecture, and perhaps most damning, Master Chief's Mark V armor, and I think it's safe to say the rumors of a Combat Evolved reboot are likely true. Whether or not this reboot will be changing the story in any way is unknown, but judging by the renders, I would say it's certainly possible the levels might be grander in scale, but again, these are just renders, so nothing here is confirmed. Another question I have to raise is that with the reboot being a thing, is it possible that Halo Studios will be replacing iconic and well-loved voice actors like Cortana's Jen Taylor or Master Chief Steve Downes? There's been talk of that in the past, so I suppose anything is possible, but I hope they don't do that. Gameplay is something that I believe will almost certainly be changed. We've seen that since Halo 5, the overall feel and movement mechanics of the 343 era Halo has never been quite the same. Take that combined with Pierre Hintz's statement towards the end, and it seems abundantly clear that 343 has no intention of sticking to Halo's roots this time. What might be surprising to my regular viewers is depending on how they do it, I would actually be okay with that by itself. One of my biggest critiques of 343 era Halo is the general failure to innovate, and their propensity to play it a little too safe in terms of changing things like the scale of battles, the types of characters you play as, etc. I even in a recent video proposed an idea for a Halo Battlefield style game where you'd play in large open-ended environments with destructibility, AI, more playable characters, bigger vehicles, etc. This is something that I and many others have always wanted, but 343 in recent years especially leaned more into the old 4v4 competitive arena gameplay, which is really something that only a certain subsect of the Halo community enjoyed. Regardless of what happens, this news is one way or another going to be a massive change for the franchise. Unfortunately, at the moment, we can only speculate exactly what kind of change that will be. Overall, the nearly 7-minute long announcement was quite vague. The staff and developers talked a lot about passion and inspiration and what makes Halo great, which is about on par with what 343 is known for. A lot of talking and not a lot of doing. A lot of hyping up a game to be the best, greatest thing ever made by only the most devoted Halo fans, with little actual delivery. It doesn't inspire a lot of confidence. This is the part of the video where I need to express some skepticism. Look, in my last Halo video I talked about just how disappointed I am with the state of this franchise. For those of you who haven't been on my channel before, I'll be blunt. I hate 343, and just because they did a little rebranding doesn't mean they're any different than they were before. Like I said, a lot of the rhetoric and mantra expressed in the announcement was much the same of what we heard during the development cycle of Halo Infinite, Halo 5, and to a lesser extent even way back in the day, Halo 4. In short, it's designed to sound good and hype you up in order to make you want to buy the next game. It's a very typical business marketing technique. As I said before, the renders do look fantastic, but so did Halo Infinite's. So did Halo 5's. Does anyone else remember the trailer from 11 years ago now that showed off the first glimpse of the Guardians in Halo 5? Yeah, the final game looked nothing like that. Not even close. Not even the cutscenes of the final game looked like that. In fact, almost everything about Halo 5's marketing was a complete lie. Now let's talk about Infinite's marketing. A lot of the same stuff that was said in the most recent trailer was also said about Infinite's Slipspace engine. The team talked about the passion, the abilities of said new engine, the things they wanted to add, and in the end, we got something that looked nothing like the original trailer that made near everyone in the community say Halo is back, which we're, by the way, seeing a repeat of this time around. Look, I really want to be able to give 343 or Halo Studios or whatever they're called the benefit of the doubt. After all, for at least the third time now, the renders look great. Classic, realistic, but vibrant art style, the Flood returning, Master Chief in what is my favorite iteration ever, the Mark V, returning in never-before-seen levels of detail. A team actually talking about making Halo for once instead of copying other trends. Yeah, that all looks cool, it does. But we have to remember that at the end of the day, these are the same people who gave us MCC, which, I hate to point this out for the millionth time on this channel, still does not work properly. I like to host game nights from time to time on the channel Discord, link down below if you want to join. But every single time we play, we'll experience hit detection issues, multiple crashes, players being randomly booted, teams not working properly, invites not working, graphical bugs, lighting issues, getting kicked back to the main menu at random, and more. All within the first hour of us starting the session. MCC is still broken. Currently, as I write the script for this video, there are hackers plaguing it who are able to ban people from matchmaking, and to my knowledge, 343 hasn't addressed the issue at all. So we're not talking about the people at 343 from 10 years ago, or 5 years ago, or even 3 years ago. The same people at 343 today, or Halo Studios as they're calling themselves now, are still messing up. Now let's talk about Halo Infinite, where, well, there's a massive over-reliance on user-generated Forge maps instead of official dev-made ones. There is probably the most limited weapon and vehicle sandbox we've seen since Halo 1 back in the early 2000s, and despite this promise of live service and constant updates, we've gotten what? One new weapon, which is just a reskinned DMR without a scope? Oh, and yeah, $20 monetized colors in virtual clothing. All that funding for what is a low-budget quality with limited dev-made content and poor optimization. Don't get me wrong, Halo Infinite is infinitely, see what I did there, better than it was at launch, but make no mistake, the game does not live up to expectations. It doesn't live up to what they were hyping in the years before the game's release. Once again, this isn't just me saying it, it's actual 343 devs themselves have admitted that the live service hasn't been up to par, and a quick look at the player counts will tell us that, well, yeah, a free-to-play Halo game of all things should not have numbers that low. Then of course, there was all the misdoings 343 enacted during Halo 4 and 5's time. The litany of rude and malicious comments current employees made towards Halo fans. Some employees that, despite working on a first-person shooter video game, don't want to design firearms in a video game because... And this isn't even something that I'm pulling out of my ass from like a decade ago or 5 years ago. This happened a few months ago. This guy came out and said this a few months ago. This is who is working on Halo currently. We're not talking about the 343 of old, and I cannot stress that enough because every time I make a video like this, I get loads of comments saying, well, that was the old 343 broken, this is the new. No, it's the same people. Sure, many of them have left. Sure, Frank O'Connor is gone. But Kiki Wolfkill basically got a promotion. And a lot of the other people, like the community manager, is still the same guy. There's other project leads that are still the same people that launched the original version of MCC. They still launched Halo 5. They still made Halo 4. Still the same people that were in charge during Halo Infinite. I remember when Pierre Hintze took over about a year or two ago now, everyone was saying, well, Pierre's going to fix Halo, Halo is saved, and what happened immediately? We got half-assed cross-core, and they just jacked up the prices of the microtransactions to compensate, and they even said that. We still haven't gotten things like playable elites, we still don't have new vehicles, we still don't have new weapons, we still don't have that many dev-made maps. Okay, so what? We have Forge. Whoop-de-doo, every game before had Forge. Forge is not a big thing, really, at the end of the day, when your base game doesn't work. When your base game has $30 microtransactions, we need more than just Forge. You even look at other games on the market right now that have very expensive microtransactions, because it's a common thing. It's not just Halo doing that, but those games have better live service. They have better content. You know, I talked ages ago about Black Ops Cold War, which the microtransactions and the issues behind that, you know, aside, they're ridiculous, don't get me wrong, but they released free DLC for that game. They released free zombies maps. You didn't have to pay for the zombies maps. The zombies maps were all dev-made. Sure, they used recycled areas from the campaign and little recycled assets here and there, but they were still dev-made. Imagine if instead those maps were Forge creations. It wouldn't be good, but yet for some reason with Halo, the standards are so low that you get people praising Forge. But moving on. My point here is that at the end of the day, Halo Studios is still 343 Industries. It's not like they fired everybody, okay? Like I said before, again, I really cannot stress this enough. Current 343 has been in charge of Halo for at least roughly the last 2 years, and we haven't seen that much improvement. MCC still has issues, hackers are running rampant, $30 microtransactions, lack of dev-made content. That is current 343. That is the 343 under the direction of the likes of Pierre Hintze and the people seen in the video from last night. That is who we are dealing with. We are not dealing with an entirely brand new studio here. We're not. Do I think that some people have better attitudes and maybe a better sense of direction? Absolutely. Some of the people they showed that spoke, I definitely got more of a vibe of a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, a sense of loyalty to what Halo is, at least from an aesthetic standpoint, for sure. But the people at the top are still largely more of the same. The people in charge, the people pulling the strings, the people giving the orders, that is classic 343. The same 343 that broke countless promises from split screen in Halo Infinite to MCC's classic game shipping exactly as they did 10 years ago. Remember that? 343's pedigree is not one of triumph and success, rather it is one of repetitive failure, arrogance, and lies. So keep that in mind when considering if their next game is worth your time or money. Of course, I would love to be proven wrong, but given 343's track record, I think the inevitable failure that will be Halo Unreal is par for the course. As always, thank you for watching, leave a like on the video if you enjoyed, and have a great day. I'll have something else more positive out later this week. Thank you again, stay safe, and goodbye.